everybody listening to Cross Border Talks. This is Malgorzata Kulbaczewska-Figat connecting with you from Poland. I am today in the studio together with my friend, the co-creator of Cross Border Talks, Veronika Sušová-Salminen. And again, we are welcoming Sergiu Mișcoiu, the political scientist from Romania, to discuss what is going on in Argentina. As you might remember, Sergiu was our guest in December, just after Javier Milei was elected president of Argentina, and we are now assembling together again less than 2 months after, because what is going on in Argentina is much more than a shock therapy that we might remember from our countries, the Eastern, the Central European countries. Javier Milei, a self-proclaimed anarcho-capitalist, a self-proclaimed ultimate anti-systemic candidate, the new Trump of the South, promised in the electoral campaign to close down the central bank and to destroy entirely the corrupt system, the Peronist system of the previous decades in Argentina. What is going on now is watched with disbelief, is watched with shock by experts, but also by citizens of Argentina who start assembling in the street to protest against what the president is doing. We are going to go into more details in a few moments, but first, hello, Sergiu.
Hello, thank you for having me with you.
And I would like to remind everybody that not to miss any episode of Cross Border Talks, you are welcome to subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also to our accounts on other social platforms. And, well, just not to lose time anymore. Sergiu, could you sum up what has been going on in Argentina for the last 60 days, less than 60 days actually? What are the most shocking changes that the new president has been introducing? And is Argentina really finding a way out of the crisis with these extraordinary measures?
Yeah, it's very interesting what happens in Argentina, and egoistically, from the point of view of a political scientist, I think that we are all mesmerized and we have a very nice field to study. But this is less nice for most of the Argentinians who are facing now a very difficult situation. So to sum up, what happened in Argentina was that, as planned, Javier Milei formed his government. He needed to go beyond his new political emerging party, La Libertad Avanza, and he had to gather in his government also some less radical right-wingers, including two of his former contendants. He's the third person in the presidential elections, Patricia Bullrich and Luis Caputo, two of his enemies in the former government, but who now are with him and defend the new plan he's got for restructuring Argentina. And this plan is no longer only a plan, but I think he knew very well from the very beginning that he needed rapid action in order to pass very rapidly and as smooth as possible, even though he knew that things won't get very smooth, these packages of reforms in order to capitalize later on during the second half of the year, or maybe by the beginning of 25, on the would-be results of his measures. So what was also noticeable was that he did not wait for things to happen naturally, and he pushed very rapidly for a huge package of reform. All in all, it's the most rightist government Argentina had, at least since the military dictatorship. And even though then you had some elements of social conservatism, including social redistribution during the military governments, while now you have a pure neoliberal, ultra-neoliberal government with lots of elements of the far right also, which of course creates resemblance between the actual government and some other prior governments. And I think that we can compare Milei with Carlos Menem in the 1990s, with his Sígame, follow me populism, but also with his obsession in regulating the currency, attaching the peso to the dollar, and also with his very strong pro-Westernism. And I think we will come back later on that aspect. More or less, this is the face of the new government, with the elements of the 90s, with elements of the far right, with elements of anarcho-capitalism, and some more moderate right-wingers who are very necessary in his government in order to secure as much as possible a relative majority in the parliament.
So hello everybody, and I will ask the next question to Sergiu, and this will be a question which is related to what you have said. You said that he has a relative support within the political process. He has basically no majority, far from majority in both in the National Congress. He doesn't have also a large support between governors, even there are some which are siding with him currently, but we see that his political party is in minority in everywhere. So he has no way how to push so radical program. And there is a political opposition he used already, as we know, as a instrument to push some of his reforms decrees, which is legally dubious, and it will be probably prone to the legal challenges in the future. And he is basically offering, as you said, very radical program. I will remind that he offers to change 300 laws in very, very short time, about 1,000 articles of laws and 300 different laws he's proposing to change in Argentina. Some of them include privatization, some of them include pension reform, and other fiscal measures, which, by the way, he had to now back off. You can say why, because it is way too radical. So how he is going to deal with these institutional constraints of the political system with so radical reform, with so less support within the establishment, let's say, and of course with polarized Argentinian society, because he is far from having majority support for his reforms.
That is true, but it is also true the fact that the discontent within the Argentinian society was so huge that people preferred to have a very radically different approach of politics and even of society as compared to the mess that existed before, as they qualified. So Milei tries to capitalize on the fact that people were profoundly discontent, and they applaud shock therapy that could in the end lead to different to various results. And from this point of view, we have to be let's say at least honest with him, saying that his predecessors inherited Macri, and then Fernandez inherited either some reserves in the bank and a debt, or less of a debt and no reserves in the central bank. And he is the inheritant of a sad situation, no reserves and a huge debt. And because of that, he wants to implement this omnibus law, as it is called, this omnibus law with, as you said, more than 300 laws that are changed and modified with thousands of articles, passing through privatizations, strengthening the power of the president, strengthening the power of the executive in more general, making huge cuts in the public expenses, implementing deregulation. And this is a very radical and intensive program of reform of the Argentinian society. Now, as you said, he has a minority government, more or less, with an increasing number of MPs trying to make allegiance in order to take profit of some of the redistribution of functions that he is able to provide. And that's the tricky part. Now he tries to negotiate. He's more pragmatic than he was before. He tries to negotiate to offer some functions and some advantages to some members of the moderate opposition in such a way that they become more lenient with his policies. A couple of days ago, the government made lots of concessions in this omnibus package, postponing lots of measures, for instance, privatizations of some of the important national societies and strategic enterprises, also trying to win the governors by reducing cutting taxation of the direct exports of the regions outside Argentina, and all in all trying to implement some measures that could capture a majority within the chambers, knowing that he needs a majority there in order to pass this huge program. Now we need also to mention the fact that the mood in Argentina in relation with this huge program of reform is very complex. As you said, things are very polarized. You do have the unions and the opposition of the left being very critical, but you also have lots of people who barely dared to show their faces. For instance, former supporters of the military government, sons and nephews of the former military who were in power and who are now exhibiting in a quite grotesque way their power. And for instance, you do have, and that's striking in the videos, you do have khaki cars, the old khaki cars of the military, the Ford cars circulating, the Ford Falcons circulating, especially in Buenos Aires, as a symbol that we are back, the military are back, we are in a government that is implementing in a quite authoritative way, they hope, a neoliberal program. And that's, of course, another issue that creates polarization and scares parts of the population who suffered a lot under the Argentinian military juntas.
Yeah, let's turn our attention now to the foreign policy, because we were talking last time also about what Milei will probably mean for the foreign policy strategy of Argentina. Now we know that he withdrew from the BRICS, where Argentina was invited just last year. He, however, and here also is shown some kind of pragmatism, which he was already speaking about within the political process. He stopped to be so aggressive towards China and Mercosur, like during the campaign. He was showing some moderation, let's say, towards these two important, by the way, economically important partners. On the other hand, he also was just recently in quite a huge rift, a diplomatic rift with the Colombian president, who is the open leftist. I remind you that he called him a murderous communist. And this was causing the diplomatic conflict already, because Colombian foreign ministry called back the ambassador from Argentina. He also already said that he will, in beginning of February, have first overseas trips. And what a surprise, he is going to visit Israel. which again is showing something. And Italy with Vatican, I am not sure how much Pope Franciscus will be happy to meet such politician from his own country. And Italy, it's clear because we know that half of the Argentinians are originally basically from Italy, so this makes sense that he's going there. So what we can make, is there some kind of structure becoming already, some kind of new pragmatism that he's attacking only those who are weaker, because Colombia is no problem for him, but China is recently. And is it going to be like I also said pro-Western together with some kind of moderate strategy towards China in his case?
Yeah, well, in the electoral campaign, he clearly promised to revise the geopolitical strategy of Argentina, to go out of the BRICS, and he did it, to cool down the relations with China. And this is much more complicated because of the dependency of Argentina of the Chinese economy. And it seems that he would find a way to understand himself with the Chinese leaders. This could also have been anticipated because of the sizes and the importance of the economic exchanges between the two countries. At the same time, once again, I think that the Carlos Menem 90s tropism is there. Menem called Argentina the most advanced avant-post of the Occident in the South. And Milei tried to copy this, of course, with a view of what the West is, which is very much of the right wing, and at the same time putting an emphasis on freedom in a libertarian way. And this creates for Argentina a tropism that goes towards the United States, towards Israel, towards, let's say, Viktor Orban in Europe, Giorgia Meloni in Europe, towards the rightist regimes who are also playing the anti-communist, anti-socialist, anti-left card. And this explains why he competed with the Colombians for the place of leadership in South America now. He despises, as we know, Lula da Silva, but he also tries to become the captain of the South American flagship, and in this way marginalizing, mocking the left-wing presidents is a strategy that is consonant with what he believes should be his foreign policy. I do think that he needs foreign policy for two things. The first is that if the situation will get worse economically, he should have some leverage to get some loans from different partners, and that's why he cannot play a full card internationally. And on the other hand, he needs to show for the domestic public that he's consequent in his facts, as compared to what he promised in the campaign. We will smash the leftists. We will be the new central point, a new model for the neoliberal successful experiment in the world. And that's why, once again, like Menem, sígame, follow me, we will establish the course in this way.
In the last question of today's talk, I would like to ask about the popular resistance, which seems to be growing against Milei. As on 24th January, Buenos Aires was paralyzed by a 20-hour-long strike, which of course did not hit on not only the capital, but it was a nationwide action under the guise of the biggest trade union confederations in Argentina. And the people of the working class participating in the protest were furious about what the president was doing, and they claimed openly that his actions were not helping them to live on in any way. Also, I think it is important to mark at this moment that while Milei portrays himself as a champion of freedom, this is definitely not the freedom of assembly or the freedom to protest, because his reform package includes also the amendments in the law that concern street protesting that, for example, He would like, for example, to confiscate the vehicles used to block roads, a very popular way of protesting nowadays. And both him and Patricia Bullrich claim that people who participate in the protest should not be entitled to get any social security. So as you can see, a lot of really it is a full assault on the right to strike and the right to peaceful protest. So
Yeah,
coming back to the question, yes. So how many people are now involved in this popular resistance? And is it a real challenge to Milei, or there is still a majority of Argentinians wishing a reset of the whole system and supporting the president?
So as you said, that on the 24th of January, we had 1.5 million Argentinians being in the streets, 600,000 in Buenos Aires. The country was paralyzed, but Milei anticipated this course, and he had a kit of communication prepared with elements that were quite interesting. Some other elements were less interesting and more resemblant to the old dictatorship style, like banning some of the demonstrators and trying to stop all the crowds that produced a huge noise. You know, the name of the movement is cacerolazos, the casserole that make a very strong noise, and this is a protest that is very well entrenched in the spirit of the Argentinians, and of course this creates the impression that the opposition is very strong, but Milei knows that lots of labor unions are doing their best and try to fire, as he hopes, their last bullets in order to push people on the street and to mobilize them, and they will get tired, and they will get tired more over if things will go the same. The inflation was huge, 50%. The monthly inflation was 25% in December and continued in January. So the economic situation is very difficult. People protest to one point, but he hopes that this will get exhausted rapidly in the following month. And moreover, if the packages of economic reform will boost the economy, as he hopes, in the second half of the year, there will be some sort of a stabilization and regrowth. And in this case, those protesters won't have any object to protest against. We should also note the fact that his popularity dropped some percent, but not very much. It was less than expected, and different sociological surveys indicate different trends. So there is let's say fairly enough half of the Argentinian population saying that he needs some sort of golden period, some sort of a carte blanche of at least 3-5 months to see what he's up to, because once again he did not come after a regular situation with institutions working properly and an economy that was stabilized, but after a very messy 2023 year, and after some very messy decade for the Argentinian economy. And last but not least, it is interesting because on one hand he's the advocate of freedom, of liberty, the liberalization of the people, and he compared the state with a pedophile in a kindergarten court before the elections, in order to justify why the state needs to get out of the people's lives. But at the same time, we see that most of these measures, and especially the speeches against the demonstrators, create the impression that the new state will be closer to a semi-authoritarian state with a strong police, with a strong army. These ministers still exist. So we have 9 ministers. There is no Ministry of Education, but there is a Ministry of the Interior. There is a Ministry of the Army. So we can also really imagine that this neoliberal economic enthusiasm will come at the same time with a strong authoritarian repression against those who will dare to comment, especially if the results will, on the economic side, at least in terms of figures, not in terms of social equitability, will not be so bad. So if he will be able marvelously to stabilize the country, let's say after June or July this year, this will just push him to be stronger on this path of combination between ultra neoliberalism and strong moral and civil authoritarianism.
Well, a mixture of a semi-authoritarian and full authoritarian government with neoliberal experiment is nothing new really to Latin America. And looking at history, it is very hard to be optimist on the Argentinian's future or the near future, even though Javier Milei is indeed trying to be a pragmatist and not a madman, like he called himself in the campaign. As Sergiu said, Argentina of today is a very interesting case for political scientists. Well, but perhaps not really the best place to live on earth today. And in solidarity with the struggling Argentinians, we are closing this episode of Cross Border Talks. We will be continuing to watch what is going on in Argentina, what is going on in the Latin American region. What will be the consequences of what is happening for all the world. Thank you, Sergiu, for being with us on this Monday morning. Thank you to everybody who listened to the talk. Again, I will remind you to subscribe to Cross Border Talks, not to miss any episode. Thank you very much and see you again.